Let me give you one more hip story. Dan Aykroyd has been a big fan of the Tragically Hip from the very beginning. If you watch the 1992 movie Sneakers with him and Robert Redford, you'll see Dan wearing a Tragically Hip t-shirt under a sport coat. And when Saturday Night Live asked for Dan to be a guest host on March 25th, 1995, he said he'd do it, but only if the Hip could be the special musical guest that night. And he got his way. Back in a sec with a look at what happened in 1989.
More of the secret history of rock coming up. Back to the secret history of rock with Alan Cross.
Each episode of The Secret History of Rock features a look back to a particular year, and today I want to highlight what happened in 1989. The Soviets finally left Afghanistan after 9 years. That was the start of a bad year for the Kremlin. By the end of the year, the Berlin Wall would go down. There'd be revolutions in Hungary and Czechoslovakia and Romania as Eastern Europe was completely reshaped. Meanwhile, the Chinese would have none of that. The government massacred hundreds in Tiananmen Square in the early morning hours of June the 4th. And then Pete Rose was banned from baseball forever for betting on games. All right, let's lighten up a bit. The Nintendo Game Boy was introduced, followed soon after by the Sega Genesis. And that December, the first full-length episode of The Simpsons was shown on TV. And the name of that episode was Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. Remember that one with Santa's Little Helper? What about music? Well, James Brown was sent to jail after leading cops on a police chase through 2 states. Madonna and Sean Penn divorced. Meanwhile, Bill Wyman of the Rolling Stones, who was 53 at the time, married Mandy Smith, who was 19. He'd been dating her for 6 years. So do the math. He was 40, she was 13. And here's my favorite part, if there is a favorite part to something like this. Bill's son, Stephen, became engaged to Mandy's mum. But if you want to give yourself a real headache, try to figure out the various familial relationships that resulted. Bill would have been the stepson to his own son, while Mandy, Bill's wife, would also have been Stephen's stepmom as well as his stepsister. And that would... never mind. You see what I mean? And finally, Depeche Mode was entering the most successful era in their career. While they were recording their Violator album, a record that would come out in early 1990, they had their 101 concert film and live album out, documenting the last gig on their Music for the Masses tour in front of 60,000 people at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena.